Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Simcoe County District School Board's second Feelin Good February session. My name is Stuart Finlayson, and I'm a Superintendent of Education with the Simcoe County District School Board. I serve the schools in the Georgian Bay District Secondary School family of schools, which is in the Midland, Penetang, Tay, Tiny Township area, as well as the schools in North Barrie through the Eastview Secondary family of schools, which does also include some schools from Oro-Medonte and Springwater Township. I'm very pleased that you're able to join us this evening, and I would like to begin this evening with a land acknowledgement of traditional territory. The Simcoe County District School Board acknowledges that we are situated on the traditional land of the Anishinaabe people. The Anishinaabe include the Ojibwe, the Odawa, and the Potawatomi nations, collectively known as the Three Fires Confederacy. We are dedicated to honoring Indigenous history and culture, and we are committed to moving forward in the spirit of reconciliation and respect with all First Nation, Métis, and Inuit people. So as I said, this is what we call Simcoe County District School Board's Feelin Good February session. It's a joint venture between the Communications Department and their manager, Sarah Kekowicz, and her team, and also one of my portfolios, the Parent Involvement Committee, that deals with parent engagement to support student achievement and well-being in support of our 4 strategic priorities. Tonight, we are very thrilled to be joined by Shawn Evans, Provincial Constable with the Nottawasaga OPP Detachment's Community Mobilization and Engagement Unit, for a discussion regarding digital citizenship and internet safety. Nothing could be more timely considering the manner in which we are all functioning. Before we get started, I just want to go over a few housekeeping items with everybody. First, please keep your microphone muted and video off during the presentation. There will be time for questions at the end of the session. If you do have a question, please enter them in the chat function. For those not familiar with Zoom, the chat function should be just at the bottom of your screen with a little bubble that says chat. You just press on that, a screen will pop up, and you can type your question in there. Communications staff member Melanie Slade-Morrison will be monitoring that, and at the end of the evening, she'll turn it back to Constable Shawn to talk about the questions that came up. So feel free to just type away. Don't forget to share your experience on tonight's session on social media. You can use Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter. Use the hashtag FeelinGoodSCDSB. If you do so, you can win a prize pack with a value of approximately $100 from Tiny Art Shack in Elmvale. I hope you really enjoyed tonight's session, find it valuable, and do consider follow-up materials that Shawn will present. Shawn, I'll turn it over to you, and thanks again for joining us this evening on behalf of the students and families we serve.
Superintendent Finlayson, thank you very much. I really appreciate the invite, and to Sarah, I really appreciate you reaching out. It's my pleasure to be here. So I'll just do a little disclosure at the beginning. You'll notice sometimes my camera kind of darks out, and this camera has an auto-off feature, and it's been troubling me for months. And I actually had a high school co-op student here a couple of weeks ago who was doing some work with us, and he tried to fix it and he couldn't, which made me feel really good about myself. But it will go off sometimes, but you'll just see me clicking on, so it'll only be off for a second or two. So my name is Shawn Evans, and I've been an OPP officer for the last 34 years. And I've been really, really fortunate the last, 3.5 years to be working at our Nottawasaga Detachment in a group that we call the Community Mobilization and Engagement Unit. I spend all of my time working with elementary school students, primarily between grade 5 and grade 8. We deliver a number of programs here this year from our virtual studio. Normally I'm in the classroom, but today we're going to be talking about something that's really near and dear to my heart. It's really timely, actually, because 2 days ago was Safer Internet Day, and I'm going to share some information with you at the end where you can get some information on that. But the objective of that sort of program was to make the internet a safer place, especially for young people, which really ties in with what we're talking about today. So a little bit about this presentation. About 2.5 to 3 years ago, we were getting a lot of requests from elementary principals or vice principals or teachers to come in and talk about, technology,
I guess I'll
digital
watch this too
citizenship,
because I can't listen to this
privacy,
and
all
listen
those
to
kinds of
that.
things. And we really didn't have a presentation to kind of fit that. So I've put this together, and it's been sort of modified, as we've progressed over the last year or two to kind of where it is today. This is not a conversation that can be had once. This issue that we're going to be speaking about is very large, very complex. It involves all of our young people and something that is very prominent in their lives, technology. So I have really 6 objectives, 6 things that after the next hour, when you walk away, these are things that I hope will sort of be on your mind and will spawn further conversation and further research and further, especially conversation within your families. So the first thing is, for parents to evaluate just how engaged they are in online activities of their students. I'm going to share some things with you shortly that I've learned from the students about their perspective of how involved their parents are, and hopefully you'll sort of take that into consideration. I want to sort of challenge you and your students to get more involved and gain a greater understanding around the issue of digital privacy. We're going to talk a little bit about that tonight. Students generally have a very limited view when it comes to digital privacy. And I think my concern, and I think the concern of a lot of academics and educators is, there's going to be a long-term consequence here when it comes to technology and students' digital footprint. We'll talk a little bit about that tonight. And particularly elementary students, I'm going to talk a little bit tonight. And what I want you to think about is, this sort of unlimited access that they have to, their device, their technology. And I'm going to share sort of some thoughts with you that, technology, particularly elementary school, grades 5 through grade 8, their free access to unlimited powers of the internet really should be on a sliding scale, taking into consideration, responsibility, maturity, and trust. And we'll talk a little bit about that. I'm hoping that it stimulates a bit of conversation in your family about any impact technology might be having on the mental health and just general health issues, in relation to our young people. I did a check this morning. I quite often go on the I quite often go on the Kids Health Phone website, and I did a quick check this morning. Their latest statistics say 43% of the calls that they receive from young people on their phone lines relate to mental and emotional health. 43%, so almost half the calls. They get a lot of communication via text. 40% of those text communications have to do with anxiety and stress. And some of the things we're going to talk about in the next 40 minutes or so have to do with how technology is sort of playing into those issues. We're going to talk a little bit about digital footprint and what that means to students today and in the future. And what I hope happens is when you leave this conversation is that you continue to have conversations with your young people about their digital footprint and sort of what that may do in relation to their, their future plans. And the last thing is really just a general, we're going to talk about several things that I hope will spawn some conversation in your families, really around just your current use of technology, the amount to which it sort of, filters into your life, and whether or not there are things that you can do as a family to maybe change that a little bit and hopefully bring in a bit more balance. So that's what we hope to accomplish. So I'm going to start off, when I do this presentation with young people, I really enjoy particularly grades 6, 7, and 8, because I asked them a bunch of questions at the beginning about their use of technology. And I'm going to share with you the answers and the questions that I talked to them about. But what I really like about these interactions is they are very, very honest. I asked some pretty, probing questions about, technology and how it's used in their families, and they are painfully honest. And it's really, it's given me a lot of insight as a parent, sort of what, a child's perspective is of technology and how it fits into the family. So I'm going to share with you, the questions, and then what I hope you do as I'm running these through these with you and sort of talking a little bit about what I've learned is that you think of your own situation, your own children, your own families, and maybe how you maybe would answer these questions as a parent. So the first thing that's fairly obvious but needs to be said is that, it's been my experience. So in 16 different elementary schools, all grade 6, 7, and 8 classes that I deal with, Pretty much 100% of the students have exclusive use of their own device, either a phone or a tablet. And by exclusive use, it's theirs to do with, what they do. They don't share it. It's theirs exclusively. I ask questions of students, about the time they spend on screen, and I want to sort of preface my comments. Pre-COVID, I would ask the question a certain way. Since we've been doing these presentations in this format, I ask them to take out of their answer any time that they spend on a screen, in relation to their education. So if they're doing learn at home, or they're doing homework, or they're doing on time, online screen stuff, whatever it is for their education, take that out of the equation. So when they answer the question, it is time spent on devices for entertainment and social purposes, and gaming, which I guess would fit into there. So I asked the students in an average class of 26, how many students would spend 2 hours or less a day on a device for those social entertainment purposes. Out of a class of 26, on average, I get 3 to 4 hands. So 2 hours or less a day, 3 to 4 hands. I then ask, how many people would fall between 5 hours and 9 hours a day? Every class without fail, that's where the majority of the hands go up. So I will get probably anywhere from 18 to 20 hands in a class go up. So aside from their schoolwork, they're spending 5 to 9 hours a day doing their other things with technology. And then I ask any students that are on their device 10 hours or more a day. I always get 2, 3, sometimes 4 in a class. I thank them for their honesty, right? That's a lot of time. I have found that there's a general trend that students that are on that long tend to be gamers, and they're spending an awful lot of time gaming. But then I ask them, what is the recommended amount of screen time? And it doesn't differentiate between education and social, but the recommended amount of screen time, for students in grades 6, 7, or 8. And it's interesting because some classes, get the answer, some don't. The number is 2 hours. And I just want to share with you where that comes from briefly. If you like to read really long psychological studies, feel free. But it came from the Iowa State University. And for 6 years, they followed 370,000 students. And they focused on amount of screen time, what they were doing on screen time, and then impact or consequences that had on anxiety, depression, exhaustion, school performance, so learning, retention of information, resiliency, mood swings, all these kinds of things. And out of that study came the very firm result that 2 hours or less a day of screen time for this age group, no effect. 5 hours or more a day, significant effect. So anecdotally, out of 17 elementary schools, some schools have 3, 4 classes. I try to hit them all throughout the year. Every single class consistently, the majority of students are hitting that 5 to 9 hours. So, you can take from that sort of what you want. Generally speaking, they're spending too much time on their screens. We talk a little bit about resiliency. And what's interesting about this is that I have noticed myself, in the schools and talking to educators, this issue of resiliency, seems to be kind of getting more, or lack of resiliency seems to be getting more common. I asked the students what resiliency is, and interestingly enough, a lot of them in most classes, they really have a hard time articulating what the word means. And I share with them that it's, when something happens to you or something kind of, emotionally knocks you down, it's your ability to pick yourself back up. I had just before COVID hit, and it's just one small example. I got an email from a teacher asking if I'd come and see her, and I went and spoke to her, and she had a grade 5-6 split. And I had grade 6 students in a DARE program earlier that year. And she said to me that she did a resiliency check, one day. And so she handed out a bunch of sheets of paper, blank pieces of paper to all of her students and asked them to write, how are you feeling today? Right? Just a very general question. And so they all wrote out, it was anonymous, and they put the notes in a box. And later that night, when she went home, she opened them up. 3/4 of that class on that particular day were all feeling down, low, anxious, upset. They weren't feeling like we would expect, a grade 5-6 student to feel. And so she asked me if we'd come in and have a talk. And so we actually cleared out all the desks in the room, and we set up a big kind of circle of chairs, and we did our own little kind of restorative circle, and we had about an hour and a half conversation. And some of the highlights that came out of that was this pervasive problem of cyberbullying, technology, too much time on phones, on phones late at night, lack of sleep, all the things that this study talked about. Here's one class where it was a real kind of live example. I asked the students, how many of you know somebody who acts differently online than they do in person? And this one, really upsets me, to be honest. And in every single class, at least 3/4 of the hands will go up. Some classes, all the hands go up. At bare minimum, we're talking 70-75% of the hands go up. So people, when they're online, they present themselves differently. They talk different. They're doing different things, different character, right, than what we would expect them to be, when we meet them in person. We'll talk a bit more about this in a few minutes, but it's a really significant, I think, from them in relation to, their digital footprint, which we'll talk about. I asked them about, we talk about addictions, and I asked the students, how many of you feel that at your age, grade 6, 7, or 8, how many of you feel that you have some level of addiction now, to your device? Majority of the hands go up in the class. The ones that don't go up in the class, interestingly enough, typically are the ones that are spending less time, the 2 hours or less a day. I then asked them, how many of you think that your parents, have an addiction to their device? This is really fun because those hands fly up faster than you could imagine. Every hand goes up in the class. And I like to be quite candid when I talk to parents. And I think a lot of what we are seeing, in a young person setting, in school, is mirroring kind of what they're learning, by observation, to be quite honest with you. And I think, I spend, when I'm out and about and I'm working and I'm at school before and after, I watch interaction between parents and their children, and I see an awful lot of this, parents are doing this and the little ones here talking, and it looks like they're ignoring them, but they're just focusing on their phone. And, it is an issue. And I think our young people watch that, they observe that, they absorb that, and they model that behavior, to a certain extent. I ask the students how many of them feel that they have some level of sleep deprivation as a result of the amount of time, that they spend on technology. A frightening number of hands go up in every single class, at least 50%, often more. I frankly don't think it's ever been less than 50%. So grade 6, grade 7, grade 8, we have students who already, self-admit, right, self-admit to having some level of sleep deprivation as a result of, their extended use of technology. Anecdotally, I see this every day when I'm in the schools, and I quite often, schedule my DARE classes, for first thing in the morning. So I'm in there at 9 o'clock as soon as the bell rings. And I see students with bags under their eyes. I see students that literally 15, 20 minutes into a lesson are kind of half falling asleep, at a very young age. And I think that ties in with, their sort of acknowledgement that they are sort of missing out on a lot of sleep. We talk about phones in the bedroom, and this is an interesting topic. And I asked them, how many of you have, your phone in your room overnight? And almost always it's the vast majority of the class. The few that don't are typically, again, those ones that are on maybe 2 hours or less a day. The ones that don't put their hand up, that don't have their phone in their room overnight, I asked them, do you mind sharing, what it is, has to happen to your phone? And for those few students, those 2 or 3 students out of a class of 26, they will say, well, my mom or my dad makes, we have to put our phones in the living room or wherever, and we plug them in and they charge out there. I'm allowed to get it when I get up after I have my breakfast, something like that. They don't seem to mind because that's, I guess, what they're used to. I hear from students when we have these conversations regularly, well, I need an alarm clock, and I inform them that you can still go to Walmart and stores like that and actually buy an alarm clock. But I challenge them, to go home and talk to their parents and say, maybe as a family, you try this little sleep challenge for 2 weeks or 4 weeks, where as a family, you find a place, to dock your phone outside of your room. Your family determines the time, where it's going to be, all those kinds of things. And, after that 2 weeks or 4 weeks, do an honest assessment and say to yourself, do I feel more relaxed, right? Am I more rested? Does it make a difference? Because the problem with the phone in the room, and, this is what they share with me, is that when that phone's sitting on the night table and it goes ding, they can't help it, right? They have to look at it. And so they'll pick it up and they'll look at it. And if it's something small, no big deal. They may put the phone back down. But maybe there's an ongoing conversation. And before you know it, they've wasted 10 or 15 or 12 minutes, doing whatever they do, and they put the phone down. And, ding, and it goes again. And this repetitive cycle, night after night after night, starts to take its toll. People at that age need 8, 10, 12 hours of sleep. I mean, that is a fact, and their bodies are growing and developing, and a lot of them are getting long-term kind of sleep deprivation, which I honestly think is sort of translating in many cases into, school performance problems, behavioral problems. I talk to educators about this all the time when I'm in school. These are consistent patterns that they see, and there is a correlation, to the influence, the pervasiveness of technology, in their lives. I saved the best question for last because this one is, I find really interesting. So I asked the students, how many of you have parents who have some level of oversight into, what you're doing on your phone? And I find this interesting because I will usually only get 2 or 3 hands in a class. Same 2 or 3 hands, that are on their phones 2 hours or less a day. And sometimes maybe as many as 5, but usually the 2 or 3 extras that have their hands up. So I say, who wants to share? Who can tell us what kind of oversight, you have in relation to your parents? And what I hear is from the 2 or 3 is that, well, if I want to download an app, or download something new, I need permission. Okay, fair enough. The 2 or 3 that consistently have their hands up in classes that actually have parental oversight, they will share that parents will do random audits, well, let me see your phone. And they'll scroll through conversations and they'll look at content, what's being posted, and they'll have conversations about, who's this person and who's this person and why are they saying this, and this whole discussion about privacy starts. And, I find this interesting because all the students I've done this presentation to over 3 years in 17 schools in 3 different class levels or grade levels, I've had 2 students put their hand up and say that they actually pay for their phones. So everybody else, and we know this, right? You own their phones. You pay the bill, you own it. And so when we're going to talk about privacy in a minute, but I inform them that, this phone belongs to your parents. And we talk a little bit about this graduated sort of level of responsibility. Here's my logic, and I'll just touch on this. When you think of the major thresholds that, your child experiences, maybe the first time they want to walk to school by themselves, or the first time they go trick-or-treating themselves, or the first time they're out with a friend by themselves, or the first time that, they want to stay alone, in the house by themselves. It's a very graduated thing. It's very controlled. Parents generally have a lot of oversight as to what's going on. So if you think of the child, I'm ready, I'm 11 or 12, and I'm ready to stay alone, in the house for the first time. Okay, well, we're going to go shopping for an hour and we'll be back. We'll see how that goes, right? And there's this kind of gradual, extension of the time. Maybe you go out for dinner on a date, whatever, and it gets a little bit longer. What doesn't happen is parents don't say on a Thursday, all right, well, you're ready. That's great. We're going to Quebec City for the weekend. We'll see you on Monday, right? And then the child's 11. It doesn't happen usually. So, the problem is with technology, it seems to be completely different. We give a 10-year-old, an 11-year-old, an $800, $900 phone with free access to the world, and there's only 2 or 3 parents. Again, this is self-reporting by the students, but in the classes that I've been in, 2 or 3 parents that are actually kind of in there, having oversight to see what's going on. And I honestly think, like all of the other things that they do, where they generally develop maturity and responsibility and trust, this is not happening with technology. And I'm not really sure why that is. So all I ask is that, maybe this is something in your families you sort of think about. I can tell you that the problems that we have every single week, I get involved with parents, students, teachers, principals, where a parent has gone into a phone or got information from another student's parent that they've uncovered a conversation that has shocked the life out of them. And they cannot believe the things are being written, in these messages. And that's a clear indication. And when you sort of drill down and you see how many students are involved in these conversations, sometimes 13, 14, 17 of them, that parental oversight isn't there. Like, these conversations have been going on for months in some cases. and for the first time, somebody accidentally sees a phone, boom, everything blows up. So something to think about. I'm going to push this at the end. I really think that parents need to get more involved. I talk to students about this. Interestingly enough, the ones that have that heavy oversight, auditing, they don't really seem to mind. They say, whatever, like I don't do anything on here I'm afraid of. I got nothing to hide. My mom wants to look. My mom wants to look. The ones that don't have the oversight, they're the ones that sort of puff up a little bit and talk about their privacy. And then I let them know that they don't own the phone and they don't have privacy when it comes to parents. And, that sort of settles that. But something for you to sort of think about. For the gamers, I just want to touch on quickly. We talk a little bit about, this fight or flight response. And I only want to bring this up because I have noticed this. The gamers are on for hours and hours and hours, and in some cases. And there was a study done out of Harvard that talks about, when you're faced with a stressful situation, your brain kicks this sympathetic nerve system in, which is essentially a gas pedal that accelerates your system and and builds up chemicals and energy for you to deal with whatever that stressful situation is. And when they've done studies to show that when a lot of kids are gaming and they're really into those sort of first-person shooter kind of games where they're got their headset on and they're really getting into it, the brain doesn't know the difference between actually being in a real live situation like that and the game that they're playing. And the problem with getting into that fight or flight response is that they've shown that it can take up to 4 hours, for the average body to sort of get back to its normal operating state. And for young people in particular, if they're gaming late at night, say they finish at 9, 10, 11 o'clock, whatever at night, and they shut the system off and they go lay down, they might fall asleep. The problem is because they're still in that elevated, fight or flight, response, they never really get into that deep REM sleep for hours and hours and hours. And if they're waking up early and this is happening night after night after night, you start to see that level of exhaustion. So if you do have a gamer, sometimes it's just limiting the hours. It's maybe, dealing with the time of day that they're on it and the amount of time that they're on it and making them aware of this. The other issue with gaming, I just want to touch on, we're going to talk about privacy, but, gaming is, the majority, at least the kids that I speak to, they are gaming with people they don't know. Sometimes their friends are in there, but there's all kinds of people in there. Gaming platforms are a treasure chest for people with, nefarious mindsets. And all I want to say is that, many of the experts are saying that the problem is they get so engrossed in the game, they get so engrossed in the game, they kind of forget who they're talking to, that it's a complete stranger. And these people that are on these, systems are pretending to be their friend. And, they're very gifted at, easing information out of them. They don't say, where do you live? Where do you go to school? They, over weeks and months, they develop conversations. And, sooner or later, you hear a student, divulge a little something, maybe a school name or maybe a name of business or something that's in the town. And I challenge students who are gamers to next time they're on, to just try and talk less and listen more. And not listen for suspect questions, but it's listen to how much personal information are gamers accidentally giving out, when they're on there. I met a heavy, intense gamer, that learned the hard way about this problem. And he ended up taking an old pair of glasses and setting them on his computer monitor as a little reminder, to himself that be careful, be careful. People are watching, people are listening. Be careful what you say. So food to think about. Finish off, we just talked about bullying. I always ask the students, the last question I ask about bullying, and I spend a lot of my time dealing with bullying. It drives me crazy. It is so pervasive, this day and age at every age group, every school. I ask the students in every class, how many of you in the last 2 weeks have seen online in some of your chats or whatever you're on doing, have seen evidence of bullying? 75% of the hands, always, every class go up. So that tells me, consistent with what the principals and the teachers are dealing with every single day, this is a huge problem. People that were never bullies before are bullies today. They hide behind a screen. They say very hurtful things, sometimes very angry things, sometimes very violent things. I have pages and pages and pages of material in this office from ongoing current matters that I'm dealing with, of things that would probably make your eyelids roll back. Some of these kids at 11 years old are typing on their devices. It's something to really be aware of. And this is why I advocate getting in there and being more involved in sort of what's going on, in relation to your child's, content, who they're talking to, what they're saying, what other people are saying, what they're being exposed to. I want to talk a little bit about digital privacy. And I used to spend more time talking about this. Fortunately for you and for me, Netflix did us all a big favor. And if you haven't not seen it, there's a show now on Netflix called The Social Dilemma. And a lot of teachers in this on these COVID days, and now that they've been doing this sort of learn at home stuff, they've actually been watching it and then or having the kids go home and watch it and then talk about it. If you haven't seen it, please watch it. It is all the things that I would normally say about my concerns about corporate digital privacy are captured in this documentary. It's called a docudrama. It's factual information. They just dress it up a little bit to make it interesting. Most people that watch it, the majority of people that watch it, are a little shocked at the amount of information that's being collected, what's being done with it. When you're watching it, I would encourage you to look in the bottom corner and look at the names and the businesses the guest speakers used to work at, no longer do. The roles they had, many of them were early executives in the business or programmers, and they all talk about how these platforms have shifted from what they were intended to be into a marketing machine. My concern is that, and I see this anecdotally in classes every day, and I see this with my own daughter, quite frankly. The information that is constantly being driven at these young people in their various platforms that they're using is very narrowed, very focused. We live in a very opinionated world, more so every single day, and it's being exacerbated by this constant drilling of certain information and algorithms to our young people. They seem to be losing the ability to be, sometimes tolerant and consider other points of view and to get, information from different sources. To inform their opinion. They have influencers, online, and that's their title, influencer. We all have influences, but we want to draw influences from different areas. These are highly, publicized, influential people who are shaping, right, the minds of our young people. And it's something we all just need to get a check in, and I would encourage you to watch that. I encourage young people to go home, to watch it with their families, to have a conversation about it, and every presentation I do with classes, I encourage teachers to then have their students come back and then do some kind of in-class discussion or conversation to kind of flush it out a little bit. And I'll leave it, for you. If you haven't seen it, please do it. It's quite an informative piece. We'll talk a little bit about security settings. Just on the digital corporate part, and then we're going to get into the privacy piece. The other thing that concerns me by and large with young people is all the apps that they're using. I will ask them, how many of you have actually gone in to your phone and gone to the little gear wheel and clicked on it and, checked to see what all the settings are? Very few hands go up. I used maybe 2 or 3, maybe 5 if you're lucky in a class. And that concerns me because there's studies that have clearly shown that the vast majority of all the apps that are being used, certainly all the main ones, if left untouched, they violate U.S. privacy laws. Our privacy laws are a little bit behind times. They're in the process of being updated, but they violate U.S. privacy laws. And the reason they're allowed to do that and get away with it, quite frankly, is because we have the ability to go in and turn things off, right? Locations, geotagging on pictures, how information gets shared, what they have access to. Please educate yourself on this stuff and educate your young people. There's a lot of these young folks running around, their Snapchat maps, and you can see where their locations are, and they're posting pictures. The geotagging is turned on. You can see exactly where that photograph was taken. It's a problem, and they're really good at using technology, not so good at understanding the background and the nuances. And I'm going to leave you with some information at the end, which is some great resources for you to go to educate yourself on this stuff. Get in there, have a look yourself. And if you don't understand what on, off, whatever it is, just go online. There's tons of universities that publish papers about all these different privacy settings, what they mean, what they're actually doing with it. If you don't like it, turn it off. Turn it off. You can still use the software. You just turn it off. and they can't collect it. Good takeaway for families to do that. Now, I asked students, we talk about, I asked them, what does, when we talk about your personal digital privacy, what does that mean to you? Hands down, every class, every time, the answer I usually get or always get in some format is, well, it means what friends I have and what I allow my friends to see. And they're correct. That at its very basic level is what we're talking about. Unfortunately, what they don't understand is a lot more to digital privacy, personal digital privacy, that they're not considering. And I want to take a few moments to share that with you. If you're not familiar, there's a writer, CBC News. Her name's Ramona Pringle. She's a technology writer. I really enjoy, she does some online stuff, on-air stuff, and then she does some writing. I just want to share with you a couple of excerpts from an article she wrote recently. Interestingly enough, the article is called "Parents Are Giving Away Tons of Their Kids' Personal Data Away. The Long-Term Effects Aren't Yet Known." I just want to share a few things with you because, again, this is where parents and grandparents have some role in this issue. It says, on average, the average parent will post more than 1,000 images of their child before that child is even old enough, to make their own decision about whether they post a picture or have a social media account. Once those children turn the age of 18, they themselves have made upwards of 70,000 posts of some sort on the internet, establishing, right, their digital footprint. The problem is, and there was a report done out of the UK by the Children's something advocate, anyway, that says the problem with this is, your children, if you have children right now in elementary or high school, they are the first generation ever to have their life fully digitized from birth, right? Everybody else has kind of grown into this. You've experienced, you've experienced life without all the digitization, right? But these kids are growing up fully digitized. And the problem is, so the study calls them the canary in the coal mine, right? And we have no idea we have some idea now what the implications are, but we have no idea what the full implications are going to be when it comes to all that data management, everything that they do online, what's happening to it. So the report, it just raises all kinds of red flags. Generally speaking, we as a society put way too much personal information online, hands down, no question about it. It talks about the privacy settings. It talks about, we have a very unhealthy reliance on these companies to protect our data. You can pick up any technology paper, any newspaper, any online news thing any day of the week, and you will find a story in there about a breach, a data breach somewhere. Big companies, small companies, all over the place. We rely on them, right? Cloud storage, all this, we rely on them to protect our information. All of the technology experts and academics believe that it's a very unfounded, confidence that we have, in these companies to do that. So the takeaway from this article is we need to make children and families, like we collectively, all of us, need to be more aware of the choices that we make in relation to the data and the things that we post. So what I share with the students is the following things about digital privacy. The first thing we talk about the app settings, the online gaming. We talk about old phones. What do you do with your old phone? That phone is full of personal information. By grade 8, most students are on their second, some of them their third phone already. Some of them say we sell them, I give them to somebody, I do this, I do that. I tell them my own phones, I keep until they die, and I smash them apart with a hammer. The problem is there's all kinds of technology out there that people can acquire. Deleted data, deleted content, doesn't matter. It's available on that phone. We use these phones every day, and we plug it into a piece of technology called Celebrate, and we download everything. Deleted content, deleted pictures, text messages that were deleted, 6, 8, 10 months ago. It's all there. You just can't see it, but it's there. So they don't know these things. We talk about social engineering, and I just want to touch on this for a moment. So I asked them what social engineering is, and that they don't know. I've yet to have a student in a class properly articulate what social engineering is. This is getting to be the #1 crime tool, if you will, for people in fraud cases, in sextortion cases, in you name it. And basically what it is they are hijacking social media. I'll explain how that works. And so it says social engineering is the act of tricking someone in divulging information or taking action, usually through technology. The idea behind social engineering is to take advantage of a victim's natural tendencies and emotional reactions. And what's happening, I asked the students before we get into this conversation, how many of you have ever had a situation where one of your friends, like in your social network on your device, has sent you a message, and when you read that message, well, it's so weird, and you found out later that your friend said, I didn't send that message to you. And I will always get 4, 5, 6, 7 hands that go up. Clear indication that there's been a breach of data in there. What's happening more and more is this is happening through free Wi-Fi. So people who access social media or banking apps, this is the #1 way fraudsters are doing identity theft in relation to banking apps. People who access that stuff on free Wi-Fi, coffee shops, malls, wherever you are completely vulnerable unless you have a VPN, which we'll talk about in a moment. So the problem is you have 50 friends in your group. Right, you may think you're really digitally secure, and that's great. And you allow your friends to see whatever it is you post. One of those 50 people hangs out at coffee culture all the time. They like to go and sit and play in their social media and have a coffee and relax. Sounds great. The problem is they're completely vulnerable, to having somebody. It's only a matter of time. Someone ends up hacking in, and then they got full access to everybody else's information. And this is what's happening more and more. And the fraudsters or the criminal intent people then take personal information and create a story, to target an individual. I don't have time to share the story with you, but it happened to my daughter about 9 months ago. She's 23 years old. Her friend had this weird kind of message. 2 weeks later, she got a phone call from an individual with some very direct, personal information that made her believe, oh my God, like this person clearly knows who I am. And at the end of the day, she ended up losing $2,500. A very hard lesson for her to learn. But what we learned from that experience was that one of her friends had their social media hacked, loved to hang out at coffee shops all the time. And as a result, they were able to look into my daughter's social media account, put a story together, and target her, for a mass marketing fraud. Happens every day, everywhere. So the message is, and I tell this to young people, don't use free Wi-Fi. If you are on social media and or banking, do not use those things on free Wi-Fi. Shut them off, close them down, because you are vulnerable. The only really exception to that is a thing called a VPN, a virtual private network. Like any other streaming service or those types of things now, you can pay for this. It's a monthly subscription. Basically, it encrypts everything coming and going from your phone, gives you a sort of an added level of security. I'm on one right now with my government computer. They work great, but it costs money, and you have to be willing to pay for it. So if you are a frequent user of free, I'll give you the tools at the end to sort of follow that up, and you can, if that's of interest to you, you can sort of explore that. Let's see. We talk a little bit about, this posting of things. Students have a very unhealthy belief that, for example, apps will tell them when someone does a screenshot. Apps will say that, well, you post something, that thing comes down in a specified amount of time. And they have a great level of comfort in that. They also have a great level of comfort in, well, I have 25 friends, and I trust all my friends, and that's great. Here's the problem with that concept. Every single day, almost every single day, certainly every single week, I get involved with parents or principals or teachers where they walk into my office and they bring pictures of conversations. And this is how it goes, right? A parent all of a sudden finds a conversation that they're shocked by. They take child's phone, take their phone, and they start taking photographs, screen after screen after screen. No one knows they've done a screenshot. Nobody knows that, that thing has been captured. Whatever that person who's done that, taken those pictures, decides to do with that conversation, if they want to post something and put all the names and all those, then it's out there. It's out there for the world to see. Students don't think about this. They think, well, if someone takes a screenshot, I'm going to know it because the app tells me that. I have stacks of paper, literally right here. I'm not going to show you them. It's personal content, but stacks of paper from parents who have come in, with these photographs. Happens every single day. So what they really need to start thinking about, we talk about, their digital footprint. What I'm trying to get them to appreciate is that things they do today are going to come back. If they are, so we talk about this, who's different online than they are in person. We talk about the board character words, right? All the character words are so important. We want people to emulate those words, and we want students to people to look at students and feel like they represent those words. The problem is so many students online are not representing those words. And the difficulty is going to be, I share with them some very, personal, what's going on today. Employers today are scouring through social media. Employers today are using application software. One's called PIMEYES, P-I-M-E-Y-E-S, which uses facial recognition. They can take my picture and they can scan it into the software, and in seconds it will search the entire universe of web. Where else has my picture been, whether I'm tagged in it or not? And so pictures that get posted, these come back to haunt people. So I try to get them to think about and essentially walk out of the class saying, if you can have your online person represent or match who you are in person, you're never going to have a problem. But when this online person differs, from this real person, employers, all kinds of people are going to be judging you based on your online character, and that digital footprint you created, what you look at, what you post, what you like, what you dislike, all the things that they're doing online, it creates a profile, the kind of person they are, what they believe in, what they don't believe in. Employers today, literally in interviews, are saying, can I see your phone? And they just want to see what the reaction is, right? And if a person says, you don't look at my phone, it's private, right? That may say to an employer, maybe we don't want this person, right? If the person says, yeah, sure, look at whatever you want. I say to them, if somebody looked at your phone right now, would you be comfortable with that, right? Some of them go, So what I really want to take away to be from this is there needs to be more conversation at home about this digital footprint concept, because they are the canary in the coal mine. They are going to be judged. And I say to them, look, you're in grade 6 or 7. If you said some things online or you posted something that you shouldn't have posted, it's not the end of the world. The problem is they need to start changing their behavior today. If they don't start changing their behavior today, it becomes a habit. And when habits form, it's very hard to break. And sooner or later, they get into high school and they keep doing it. That profile, that digital footprint is going to be very well ingrained. And if, by the time they hit university, universities will probably be screening people based on their online profile. Employers will be doing a lot more to screen. For the first time, they are the one generation, for the first time, they are being judged, whether they get a job or not, by what they do on their own time. That never happened. That's never happened before, because the employer has full access to it. Again, we post too much stuff. The last thing I just want to touch on is this issue of criminality. And I just want to mention this because one thing that concerns me when I do these presentations is I ask the students in the class, at what age do you first become criminally responsible for your behavior? I get 18, 16, 14. The odd one will say 12. The age is 12. And I talk to them, like I say to them, unfortunately, parents generally don't, come to you on your 12th birthday. Oh, happy birthday. By the way, you do anything wrong now, you could get arrested and charged. That's not a conversation that parents want to have, but that's the reality. And, in 2015, there were a couple of new sections inserted into the criminal code as a result of some very tragic circumstances with young people that now criminalize certain online behavior. And I make sure they know this before they leave, because they don't know this. A lot of high school students don't know this. The first one has to do with the unauthorized dissemination of intimate images. I don't spend much time on this. Where this has become a problem in all of our schools, elementary schools, is that somebody sends a picture, an intimate picture to 10 friends, right? Well, it's what the friends do with those pictures that creates the problem. And what the law says is, unless the person in that photograph has given consent for the dissemination of that picture, then it's a criminal offense to send it on. And what we're finding is where young people get into trouble, they go, well, that's funny, and then they forward it off, to 7 other people. That's where the violations occur. But so we tell them, you can't help if somebody sends you something like that. You talk to your parents, you tell your parents, you delete it, right? You do proactive things to make sure that you're not part of the distribution. So it's a very light subject we touch on, but this is becoming a problem. It's a problem at all ages, but this is a problem for young people in particular that I don't want to see them get into. The second thing is, bullying, cyberbullying is now a criminal offense. A lot of people do not realize this. Section 372 of the Criminal Code. So young people can be held accountable, for this, repetitive online harassing or bullying that is happening every single day. Most times, parents, schools, teachers, educators deal with it. We deal with it. It's great. But I can tell you that people's level of patience and just general tolerance for this kind of stuff is shrinking and shrinking and shrinking. And I share this with the students that, sooner or later, someone is going to walk into our office and complain, and an investigation is going to start. And then we get search warrants and we start seizing phones and we download phones. And that circles back to the very beginning of our presentation where I asked them, who owns your phone? Mom and dad. So when we download that phone, and generally we get about, 3 inches or so of paper printed off those phones of all that deleted content, every website they've been on, so on and so on. All of that goes to mom and dad. And imagine how that conversation is going to go, I tell them. And the other little tidbit in there for parents, and this is where I advocate parents getting more involved. If a child does get involved in this behavior, for the very first time, the courts actually have the authority to administer financial penalties to compensate victims and to pay for trying to remove this content off the web. The largest single monetary fine that's been issued by a Canadian court so far is $141,000 for one man who distributed one very private, intimate image of his ex-girlfriend, $141,000. So I remind these kids that, you are using a device that is owned by your mom and dad. Who do you think is going to be accountable, for whatever happens on that device? So circles back. It's a very, I just touch on the criminal part because I think, they're old enough, they understand this stuff. We keep it very light, but they need to be educated on these things because they're using a phone largely without a lot of supervision. So, I have 2 minutes and then we'll have some questions. Where I want to leave this off is, so what do we do about this? As parents, what can we do about this? So my first thing, I have about 6 tips here that I want to leave with you. The first thing is get involved, have honest conversations. These kids are incredibly bright. They're incredibly honest. You ask the right question, they will answer it. And a lot of times they just don't understand. They don't understand the complexity of their digital world. And they just think of it in very simple terms. It's something they use. It's fun. I get to talk to my friends, right? Start the conversation and start to learn. What a lot of parents, if there are, technology issues with extensive use and, kids are on their way too much, I always like to promote family resets. So, you know what, we're all of us, we're going to do a family reset and we come up with a social contract, which talks about how much time we can be on the phone. What are the consequences if we don't follow the rules? Do we have phones in our room? So it's a bit of it's like setting out the standards, like your employer saying to you, this is your job description, right? Same kind of thing. So it helps teach them digital responsibility and consequence if they don't follow through. I urge you to watch The Social Dilemma if you haven't, and then have a conversation with your kids and a little introspective, in yourself, just to think about how much you're putting online. Do you need to change? So some of the things that we talked about, one of the websites I go to literally every week is this getcybersafe.gc.ca, a federal government website full of all kinds of fantastic information on just about anything. Most of the things we've talked about, you're going to find on that website. So I'd encourage you to check back regularly. Cybertip.ca, same kind of website, lots of great information on there, and which just kicked off this week, Internetday.org, another fantastic place. The objective of this entity is to make the internet safer for children. So there's all kinds of stuff on there, to help people kind of educate themselves. Go on there with your kids, learn together, have conversations, maybe challenge them to go on and learn and educate themselves about privacy settings and then have a conversation about it. Great way to help teach them the things about technology that they don't generally talk about. talking about digital footprint, I can't stress this enough. You really need to have these ongoing conversations about, what does their online presence look like? How are people going to perceive them if they simply look at their online profile? And if they have a profile that isn't the best, then help them, right? How do we change it? How do we make it better? Adult oversight, I can't stress this enough. It's not my job to tell a parent, what you should be doing, but I honestly think random inspections, open conversations. Like I would tell my child, you know what, I'm going to be checking your phone every now and again. I'm going to be looking in, seeing what your conversations are. Put them on notice, right? Give them some warning and then follow through and do it. It's just making sure, and it may not be them having the conversation. The problem is they might be a bystander in a conversation of 14 people where 2 or 3 people are being horrendous bullies and they're just on there doing nothing. And they need to learn that they need to do something. They need to speak up. They need to tell you, get out of the conversation, kind of do something. And the last thing is the sleep challenge. And I really would, for the people that have their kids with their phones in their room overnight, it's a fun thing to do. If you do it, I always like to say to parents, what's good for the goose is good for the gander. So this needs to be a family event. You try and lecture a child that you can't keep your phone in your room when your phone's in your room. Well, good luck, right? So, but if we do this as a family together, try it for a designated period of time and then have an honest conversation, right? How do we feel? Do we feel better? So I am, we're at 55 minutes or so. So I'm going to open up if there's any, that's kind of the end. These are very complex subjects. What I really want you to do is just to, I think, get more involved yourself and educate yourself and have these discussions. You are, your children, right, are the test, the digital test for how this all works out down the road. And I think we collectively as a society, I'm passionate about this conversation. When I do this with students, it lasts almost 2 hours. Lots of great conversation. It's just helping them think, beyond what the app does. So can we maybe open up some questions?
Yes, thank you so much. That was awesome. I, as a parent of a young child, took a lot away from that and things to think about for myself as well. One of the questions that we did have is about a child or a family who the child has restricted access to online games, but his friends seem to have unlimited access or regular access and talk about it all the time. And how do you recommend talking to your child about the reasons that you have the limited access, especially when the other kids are always bothering him about getting this game or that game or playing this, and he doesn't understand why?
That's a fantastic question. And this is exactly how I think I would sort of handle that. As a parent, I would, if my child asked me that question, I would say, because what parents don't generally do when they start to try and lay down rules, or they're trying to restrict, or they're trying to figure out when's that best time to get them a phone, and you always get, well, Susie has one, that kind of stuff. What parents sometimes don't do is follow through and explain the why. And all the things that we just talked about is the why. And I think if parents are more up to date on those websites of the larger issues, privacy, the digital footprint, all the things that we just talked about, then I would have a very open conversation with my child and say, look, other parents can decide what happens in their families. In our family, we're very concerned, about technology and the impact it's going to have in your future. I got to tell you that, the students that have the heavy I ask them all because I'm fascinated by this. Every class, I always ask those 2 or 3 students who have the heavy restrictions, how do you feel about it? And honestly, I have never had one say anything other than, like, it really doesn't bother me. They shrug their shoulders, they're like, whatever, it's just this what my mom does. And I think, unfortunately, when students first get phones, and this is when I talk about that graduated responsibility, right? And what I would say to my student probably, like, when you can demonstrate, because so many students do not have the maturity level or responsibility to have the unfettered access that they currently have. So I think as a child, I would say, as you mature and you can demonstrate your trust, and I'm in and I can sort of see what's going on, then you start to get a little bit more freedom. And I think that's the same with anything in life. So, and for the other students that don't have that, it's just simple, like, that's their parent to decide what they do. We love you and we want you to, to grow up being a responsible digital citizen. And that takes a lot of education. So, something like that, I think I'm telling you, they get it. And they may whatever, chirp a bit and be upset about it, but they get it. And the ones that have those restrictions, honestly, I've never had one say, "Oh, this is terrible. It's the worst thing ever." Never has a student said that to me, ever.
Great. Thank you so much. One more question that we have, and it kind of goes back to when you were talking about the security settings and privacy on different apps and games and things like that, is if, obviously, without going into too much detail, could you share an example of how students in your experience have become vulnerable because of their security settings, such as like location settings and things like that?
Well, yeah, great question. I don't have any statistics to to say that. I can tell you that, I have these conversations with the students, like we talk about Snapchat and the Snapchat map, which I have a really hard time saying. But anyway, it's, and the first time I saw this, my daughter showed it to me, several years ago, and, she logged on, and she has a friend, Emma, and I could see that Emma was in the rear parking lot at Upper Canada Mall in Newmarket. And I was absolutely shocked by that. And I think, fortunately, I don't think we have had, examples where there are, child security issues. Obviously, it happens around the world. I can't say we've had any here in our detachment area, but I think what concerns me the most about those privacy settings is the inability to control who sees it. When we talk about your friends and who's accessing free Wi-Fi, and if some hacker gets in, to one of your friends, and it's happening, I can tell you 6 or 7 students every class say they've got that message that the friend didn't send, which means there's hackers in there somewhere. That's what worries me, right? And they see a picture of a child, and if they've got, Snapchat map turned on, or they've got like geotagging on their picture, this is all about prevention. All we're doing here today is about prevention. So I think those things should be turned off. There should be no reason why a child should have that location on. There should be no reason why geotagging is on in a photograph. All those kinds. There's no reason for it, especially if it's going to be posted, or especially if they're in a network where, a network of friends where people can get in there and potentially see where it is. So I can't give you any concrete statistics on that. Fortunately, I would take that as a good thing. But I think what we don't want to do is, find out the hard way, right? That's occurred here, and we have a child in a really dangerous situation because, that was turned on. It's just something that I'm very passionate about. That it worries me a great deal. That's way too much information, that's unprotected. I mean, that's the problem.
Perfect. And I actually have 2 more questions now that just came in. So the first is there a way for a parent to see deleted content from a phone or history that's been deleted so that they can check and see if their children have been, using it responsibly?
Yeah, well, here's the problem. They're very good at this. Is the stuff they're really good at, right? Deleting their browser history, all those things. Here, the problem is when we do those things with phones, we're using a piece of software called Celebrate. There are other forensic tools out there. Most of the good ones are only available to police agencies or law enforcement type investigations to do forensic downloads. That data is always there. The problem is, as parents, I'm not familiar with that. The problem is once they delete, for example, their browser history, the pathway, to that information is gone. What's not gone is the browser history. It is still there, but I'm not a tech person at all on that side. But we have some very brilliant 20-some-year-olds, in our internet do that work. But forensically, that information is there. For a parent, it's really difficult. That's why I honestly think those random audits, right, random inspections, probably work the best because they're smart. They know, if they're on a website they shouldn't be on, they're going to delete the browser history. If they're on a conversation where they're saying things they ought not to be saying, and then they're using, apps that will delete after a certain time period. A lot of that stuff is cloud-based storage. It's for a parent, I think it's really difficult. Frankly, I'm not sure how that would be done. So I think it's more just, I think, being involved. And I think being involved in a positive sense, right? This is why I'm checking your phone, right? This is a tool. You need to demonstrate your responsibility. This is why I'm checking it. It's very honest. And I think that's probably the easier way around it. But
Perfect, thank you. And then the final question that we've got for tonight is, thank you so much for such a great presentation. Is there a way that we can arrange for you to speak with parents at our school?
100%. So where did I put it? Right here. So right now, I every week I do 2 or 3 of these with school age kids. So we hit, and then we also do parents. So my web address is there, shawn.g.evans@opp.ca. I'd be more than happy. Right now, it actually works out really well because it really doesn't matter where the school or whatever is. We can do it virtually anyway. So it's something I would love to do, and I think the more people that hear this, part of the challenge to be if I'm being really honest, is that the majority of people that like yourselves tonight that check into these things, they're probably not the people that really need to be here. I mean, let's be honest, and we're trying to, that's why through the children, we're trying to get them to go home and stimulate these conversations so that we get kind of more people involved. But any opportunity we have to have these conversations, that would be great, for sure.
Great, thank you so much. And then I'm just going to unmute Stuart Finlayson again.
Sorry about that, just coming back in. So thank you very much. So thanks, everyone, and what a great couple of questions to wrap it up as well. And Officer Shawn Evans, I'm sure you really could use a drink of water right now. That was
I spent my life in here lately, but it's a great topic, and I really appreciate everybody participating and joining in. So thank you.
And as do I. And as I said off the top, for those that are with us, the mandate of the Parent Involvement Committee for the Simcoe County District School Board is increased parent engagement to support the achievement and well-being of all of the students and families we serve. And I can think of perhaps no better opportunity for some parent engagement to just sit down and say, let's talk about our phones. Let's talk about it, because it is so much a part of our lives now. So I think it is such a valuable topic. And I know often when we think about school, we think about the curriculum of reading and writing and mathematics, which are incredibly important. But this is the world our children are living in and we are living in, and this parent engagement on how to take care of that well-being from this side of their lives. Because Shawn's shared some research. The last thing I would say on research is that when that well-being side of a student's mind is blocked, it then leads to the inability on the academic side of things. Absolutely. So really those two have to work in harmony. The brain has to be released of the stress and tensions. And if they're holding something that they know they shouldn't have there in their brain, excuse me, quick conversation with mom and dad to remind them you love them, you care for them. And one thing I always share with folks, when I was a school principal, students would come to the office on occasion and they would say, am I in trouble? And for what it's worth, I would say, no, actually you're here so that we can help you get out of trouble. And it's just the semantics of what the word trouble really means. There may be some consequences, there may be some learning, but I want to assure you as a student, you are not in trouble. We are here to help you. So on that note, for what it's worth, I do invite you to engage with Shawn on that invitation from him. And speaking of engaging, I want you to continue this conversation on social media safely using the following hashtag. Feelin Good, SCDSB, capital on the feelin, capital on the good, and capital on the SCDSB. And that'll put you in line for that prize that I spoke about. The Tiny Art Shack in Elmvale is giving away approximately $100 prize for tonight's participants. And that will be drawn tomorrow. Last thing I will say before we all go, we're changing gears a little bit next week, but we hope you can join us on February the 18th for a family yoga night, and that will be led by Bliss and Green Yoga. So we'll definitely be putting down our phones and getting active. Until then, I hope everyone has a safe and wonderful Family Day weekend. And thanks again, Officer Evans, for joining us, and for everyone that took the time out of their busy lives to be here tonight. Take care and be well.
All right. My pleasure. Thank you, everybody. And Sarah, I just want to thank you for the invite. I love these conversations. It was great to meet everybody. If you have further questions, please feel free to email me, and I will definitely get back to you. So thank you very much. All right. Bye, everybody. Thank you.